Alicia, thank you for, not just for being here, but thank you as always for the quality of our conversation, our exchange. One of the things I mentioned in our meeting is in the 30 or so years that I've been engaged in foreign policy and these issues, I don't think there's been a time when we've had stronger partnership and collaboration between Mexico and the United States. And that's at a time when the multiplicity of issues and their complexity is also greater than ever before. So it's something that we deeply value, and we've had the opportunity to speak on the phone several times since Alicia has taken on this post. But I'm so grateful for today and being able to spend time in person. We covered a lot of ground in our meeting. Let me just touch on a few of the main issues. For us and for Mexico, the challenge of dealing with drugs, and particularly now synthetic drugs, is at the top of our respective agendas. Here in the United States, fentanyl, a synthetic opioid, is the #1 killer of Americans between the ages of 18 and 49. That in and of itself puts it at the very top of the list of our priorities. It's taken a tremendous toll on a human basis. It's taken a tremendous toll on an economic basis, more than $1.5 trillion in a single year, the costs of dealing with this epidemic. So it's a major priority for President Biden, a major priority for me. We're focused in the United States in dealing, of course, on the demand side and reducing it, on effective treatment, on helping people get what they need, and we've made progress there. But it's by definition an international problem, because when it comes to synthetic opioids and when it comes to fentanyl in particular, in many instances, the chemical precursors that go into making these drugs are made in one place, transferred to another, put together, and then come to the United States. So we have to deal with this on an international level. It's also profoundly, for all of us, a public health concern, because it's affecting our communities in such profound ways. So we talked about today how we can strengthen and deepen even more the already significant collaboration that we have on narcotics in general and synthetic opioids in particular. This progress has been achieved with the leadership of President López Obrador and President Biden over the last 2.5, almost 3 years, working together to disrupt illicit supply chains and curb the production, the distribution of, in this case, these precursors, many of which are legal and then get diverted into illegal use, targeting organized crime and drug traffickers, preventing and treating addiction, something we're both very focused on, and advancing our bicentennial framework for security, for public health, and safe communities that we established in 2022, including something else that feeds into this, which is arms trafficking, because we see the criminal enterprises and cartels being able, in some part, to do what they're doing and protect themselves because of weapons, guns that are coming from the United States into Mexico. Finally, on this, we were very grateful for Mexico's participation in something that we established earlier this summer, and that is the Global Coalition to Address Synthetic Drug Threats. We now have 85 countries who have signed on to take part in this. And this was not a one-off meeting of foreign ministers and other ministers. It's an organized collaboration among some 85 countries to work together on all aspects of the synthetic opioid problem to get a stronger grip on it and to deal with it more effectively. I anticipate we'll have another meeting of this coalition on the margins of the UN General Assembly in just a few weeks. We have a work plan. Mexico is an integral part of this, and we very much welcome that collaboration. Second, we focused on irregular migration as well as some regional challenges. You all know this, but it always bears repeating. We have historic record levels of migration going on around the world. More than 100 million people on our planet on the move, away from their homes. In our own hemisphere, well over 20 million people. So what we've determined to do is to work as a region to make migration more safe, more orderly, and more humane. Just 2 weeks ago, President López Obrador was good enough to host the White House Homeland Security Advisor, Elizabeth Sherwood Randall, as well as our Deputy Secretary of State Rich Verma. And they had a very productive meeting with Alicia that includes looking at a new initiative that we're working on to help refugees and vulnerable migrants in southern Mexico. This builds on a series of very successful efforts that we've made to build out legal pathways for those seeking to come to both of our countries. And this is usually important because one of the things we know is this. If given the choice between coming to the United States legally or putting themselves in the hands of a trafficker, taking the incredibly hazardous journey to our border, and then getting there, and of course, not getting in, it's pretty clear what virtually everyone will choose. So, one of the things that we've been doing in answer to the challenge is to expand legal pathways, and some of the things that we've done have demonstrated very clear results, including, for example, the parole program that involves Haiti, Cuba, Venezuela, and Nicaragua, where we've seen numbers of those seeking asylum at our border go down significantly as a result of creating a legal pathway. So we're working on all of this together, and in many ways it flows from what we agreed in Los Angeles at the Summit of the Americas, where the Los Angeles Declaration on Migration and Protection established for the first time a sense of shared responsibility in the hemisphere, countries of origin, countries of transit, countries of destination. It is challenging work, but it is work that is producing results, and in this, our partnership with Mexico couldn't be more critical. We also talked about, among many, an important regional challenge, and that's Haiti. I want to commend, first and foremost, the decision of the government of Kenya to now consider leading a multinational force in Haiti to help restore security and stability. That is, in so many ways, a necessary condition and probably even precondition for making real progress on restoring Haiti's political track to elections and a new government, as well as making sure we have an environment in which humanitarian assistance, for which the United States remains the #1 provider, as well as development assistance can get in. So this is a very important step. We're now urging partners around the world to make clear that they're ready to participate to such a force. And I want to thank, among others, Jamaica and the Bahamas for standing up and making clear their willingness to do that. We're working on our own significant financial contribution, and we hope to carry this forward in the weeks ahead. It's the best way, we think, to get it helping reestablish security in Haiti and creating space for the country to move forward. Finally, I just want to mention that we spent a little bit of time, but we know we're getting together in just over a month's time on our economic partnership. We have the high-level economic dialogue coming up. We have been very focused at the instruction of President Biden, President Lopez Obrador, on regional integration, building resilient supply chains, manufacturing semiconductors in North America. When we have the high-level economic dialogue next month, we're going to be focused on concrete ways we can advance that agenda. In particular, strengthening a skilled workforce, which is vital to being able to do any of this, and bolstering regional semiconductor development. I think both Mexico and the United States see a tremendous opportunity in regional integration, everything that it means for our economies, for opportunity, and for making sure that North America is at the forefront of the economy of the 21st century. So we have a very busy agenda, and I think that's manifested by the fact that we'll have a high-level economic dialogue, a high-level security dialogue. We'll have the North American Leaders Summit before the end of the year. We'll be together probably at APEC as well. And again, Alicia, I couldn't be more grateful for the collaboration, for the genuine partnership that our countries have, and for the pleasure of working with you.
Well, thank you so much. I am very grateful for this opportunity, dear Secretary Blinken, and to be here in this wonderful office. And I would, first of all, would like to tell you that I really believe we have an unprecedented relationship between Mexico and the United States. And if you allow me, let me now turn to Spanish, if you don't mind.
Please.
Thank you so much. Muy buenas tardes a todos, a todas. Quiero agradecer muy especialmente al secretario Anthony Blinken por su hospitalidad, por haberme invitado a estar aquí en esta maravillosa oficina. Y bueno, creo que abordamos muchos de los temas que el secretario ha abordado ahora, que les ha referido, y yo quisiera referirme a uno en particular que también tuvimos la ocasión de discutir, que es el tema de las boyas en Texas. Estamos muy preocupados por el tema y agradecidos porque el Departamento de Justicia de Estados Unidos ha interpuesto una demanda contra el gobierno de Texas y esto nos ayuda muchísimo porque en realidad estamos hablando de una situación que es muy delicada porque está realmente en la frontera, ¿no? En nuestros ríos, en el río Bravo, en el río Grande, pero la mayor parte de las boyas están del lado mexicano. La Comisión Internacional de Límites y Aguas de ambas partes, las dos secciones de la Comisión Internacional de Límites y Aguas, han hecho un trabajo de campo muy importante y creo que de ahí, y junto con esta demanda que ha interpuesto el Departamento de Justicia, creo que vamos a poder encontrar una solución. Por lo pronto ahora yo me voy realmente yo diría con un prospecto de mucha esperanza de que vamos a crear posiblemente un grupo de trabajo para ver primero qué dice la Corte Federal y por lo tanto qué podemos hacer para resolver este tema muy pronto. El segundo tema que quisiera contarles es que yo traje una carta personal del presidente Andrés Manuel López Obrador para el presidente Joe Biden. Y en esa carta, por supuesto, reconocemos el enorme trabajo que estamos haciendo conjuntamente y especialmente en el tema que preocupa y que fue el primero que abordó el secretario y que quiero reiterarles aquí el compromiso de México para trabajar conjuntamente yo diría, en el control, en el manejo y yo diría en poder romper las cadenas de suministro en relación a las drogas sintéticas. Y lo primero que quiero hacer es un gran reconocimiento al secretario Anthony Blinken porque la creación de la coalición global de las drogas sintéticas que se celebró el 7 de julio y en la cual tuve el honor de participar como mi primera reunión, creo que fue muy importante. Participaron más de 80 países, más de 20 organizaciones. La verdad que es una idea muy importante y no solo una idea, sino que tenemos que ir hacia adelante en ello, independientemente de que se producen o no, dónde, etcétera. Lo importante que tenemos que lograr es detener estas cadenas de suministro y México está muy comprometido. Yo le traje al secretario Blinken una propuesta, no es una propuesta, ya es un proyecto que estamos llevando a cabo que se llama el Sistema Integral de Sustancias, que es una forma de monitorear digitalmente la entrada de precursores químicos de drogas sintéticas a México, pero fundamentalmente en México, por supuesto, y ver a dónde van estos precursores. Porque, por supuesto, que hay una parte que va a las industrias cosméticas o farmacéuticas, pero hay otra parte que se va al trabajo ilícito y eso también lo vamos a perseguir. Así es que en eso estamos muy conscientes de la prioridad que esto significa para Estados Unidos y para Canadá, porque se nos están yendo los jóvenes y este es el problema. Y yo creo que es un tema de salud pública, pero sin duda es un tema de colaboración y de colaboración global, no solamente entre nuestros países. Quiero también referirme a lo que hablamos sobre migración. Pero antes de eso, quizás en el tema de seguridad, porque vamos a tener esta reunión de seguridad y va a ser en México, y nos va a dar mucho gusto recibir al secretario Blinken el 5 de octubre, o por ahí, pero creo que sí, y vamos a hablar de este tema de seguridad, pero también vamos a hablar de algo para México, es muy importante, que es el tráfico de armas. Para nosotros este es un tema muy importante porque es el otro lado de la moneda del problema de la delincuencia organizada. Y esto significa que podamos controlar la entrada de casi 200,000 armas que están entrando a México por año, y que podamos realmente trabajar conjuntamente en ello, y creo que hay avances muy importantes en Estados Unidos y queremos agradecer su compromiso al respecto, porque esto para nosotros es muy importante. Y ahora sí, en el tema que también hemos abordado y del cual yo soy responsable por mandato del presidente Andrés Manuel López Obrador, que es el tema de migración. Y ahí creo que tenemos una maravillosa oportunidad, porque creo que se han abierto vías legales o vías de movilidad segura, ordenada y regular entre nuestros dos países, de manera que no había habido antes. Y creo que esto hay que rescatarlo, hay que decirlo, hay que yo diría, comunicarlo, y por eso decírselo a ustedes es muy importante, queridos medios de comunicación, porque se han logrado visas humanitarias, por ejemplo, para más de, yo diría, 177,000 personas de nacionalidades de Cuba, Haití, Venezuela y Nicaragua. Se han logrado más de 170,000 visas o permisos en el CBP-1. O sea, estamos hablando de 347,000 personas que han podido ingresar de manera regular y ordenada a Estados Unidos. Y esto nos parece de la primera importancia. Y, por supuesto, también, obviamente, tenemos algunos otros aspectos interesantes, como es el tema de trabajo, ¿no? Permisos temporales de trabajo, que son también muy importantes, y visas de estudiantes, y nuestra visa, por cierto, del Tratado de Libre Comercio, donde quizá vale la pena ampliar algunos aspectos, algunas profesiones que el sector privado nos está pidiendo, lo haremos pronto seguramente. Pero lo más interesante también, y me quiero referir a lo que México está dispuesto a hacer, y es a establecer un lugar en el sureste de México, que es donde el presidente López Obrador nos ha dicho que debemos enfocar nuestros esfuerzos para tener un espacio en donde, junto con las Naciones Unidas, con la Organización Internacional de Migración y con la Organización de los Refugiados, podamos dar lugar a un análisis o una evaluación preliminar de aquellas personas que se quedaron en México rezagadas después de la conclusión del título 42. Estamos hablando de un número específico de personas que están ahí, que podrán ser en cierta medida evaluadas en su elegibilidad para venir a Estados Unidos. Estados Unidos, entonces, una vez que se haga esa revisión por parte de las agencias de Naciones Unidas, podría enviar servicios consulares para ver qué personas pueden o no venir hacia acá, y las que no puedan, pues ya México verá si las integra, sobre todo en los proyectos. ¿Por qué el sureste? Porque es ahí donde el presidente López Obrador ha puesto la atención, en el plan, por ejemplo, del Tren Maya, en el corredor transísmico, donde además habrá y hay oferta de trabajo temporal muy importante. Y además porque no queremos que la gente siga arriesgando su vida en el norte y en el trayecto. Entonces pensamos que en el sur es el mejor lugar donde podemos recibir a estas personas. Y por tanto, pues ese es uno de los grandes temas que estuvimos conversando, y yo agradezco porque ahí tenemos un diálogo tan fructífero que debemos continuar. Y por último, no menos importante, es el tema económico. ¿Cómo podemos profundizar la integración económica entre nuestros países y con Canadá? Sin duda, pronto habrá esta reunión de líderes en Canadá. Bueno, y creo que nos vamos a ver muy frecuentemente, porque nos vamos a ver en la Asamblea General, después nos vamos a ver en México, luego nos vamos a ver acá de nuevo, para APEC, y luego, en fin, creo que nuestra agenda es muy activa y me da mucho gusto. Y yo solamente quiero decirles por qué es tan importante este tema. Porque en los últimos 6 meses, hoy la Secretaría de Economía publica que el comercio entre nuestros países llegó a 400,000 millones de dólares en el primer semestre. Es decir, estamos hablando de una expansión impresionante. Y por cierto que México se ha convertido en el primer socio comercial de Estados Unidos. Y creo que eso es, y bueno, para nosotros ni duda cabe. Y desde luego, creo que es importante destacar también que con este gran tema de la relocalización, el reshoring, el nearshoring, realmente México, de acuerdo a cifras del Banco Interamericano de Desarrollo, capturará el 50% de las inversiones de nearshoring, y seguramente Estados Unidos el otro 50%, porque de verdad que yo creo que ahí andamos, pero quiero decirles que realmente es uno de los temas más relevantes. Y reflejar, sí, que ¿por qué esto es tan importante? Esto es muy importante para la gente, porque ampliar las oportunidades económicas es ampliar las oportunidades de empleo. Y simplemente quiero decirles que hoy se publicaron unas cifras en México impresionantes, en las cuales se menciona claramente que en este periodo hubo una disminución de 5 millones de personas pobres en México. Eso es lo que se publica hoy en los diarios mexicanos y yo creo que esto es muy relevante porque en el fondo todo esto que estamos haciendo es para el beneficio de la gente. Nosotros trabajamos para la gente y no quiero dejar afuera a las mujeres y sobre todo pues somos mujeres, ¿verdad? Y por lo tanto también somos muy comprometidas con ayudar a las mujeres, a las familias y creo que ahí está nuestro futuro de la relación del Bicentenario, querido Tony Blinken, querido secretario, en donde podamos ampliar nuestras posibilidades de integración profunda, integración entre nuestras naciones, entre los pueblos, y creo que ahí es donde está nuestra alianza estratégica. Muchas gracias.
First question today goes to Kylie Atwood, the CNN.
Good afternoon. Thank
Kylie.
you so much. Madam First Secretary, I'll start with you as the visitor here. You mentioned that you brought a proposal to Secretary Blinken to digitally monitor the precursor chemicals coming in to Mexico when it comes to synthetic drugs. When could that system actually go into place, and what are you asking in terms of the U.S.? Do you need resources to stand up that system? Just some more detail would be great. Secretary Blinken, I'm going to focus on Iran with you. Has anyone in the U.S. government had contact today with the 5 Americans who were imprisoned in Iran and have been moved to house arrest? Can you give us any update as to how they're doing mentally and physically? And then there's a lot of questions about what is going to happen as part of this deal over the course of the next few weeks here. Iran is saying that there are 5 prisoners in the U.S. that are going to be released. Can you confirm that that is the case? When will they be released? There's also, we've reported some conversations about the $6 billion of Iranian funds in South Korea that will potentially move. When will those funds be moving, and why is the United States in a position where it's willing to give Iran easier access to those funds? And finally, are there any Americans who are still wrongfully detained in Iran, whether they be citizens or legal permanent residents of the U.S.? Thank you.
Alicia?
Shall I start? Let me answer in English this time. Yes, we're putting together a strategy for the control of chemical precursors and the protection of health. And this is being done by the Ministry of the Navy, the Army, basically, and the Secretary of Health, together with COFEPRIS, which is the regulatory agency. So the mission is to monitor, track, and locate in real time the regulated chemical substances that enter into Mexico, as well as to generate a database of the subjects, substances, quantities, and regulated activities that are carried out with them to guarantee the legal traceability. Now, that doesn't mean in their point of origin. And we go from the point of origin to the end user and the consumption side. So that's the legal path. We also know that there's an illegal path, and that's also going to be monitored and traced. That's a little bit more difficult, but we're pulling together a system which is digitalized, and I think the aim, and when I say we're putting as we speak, I mean this is a system that is now being in certain way tested, but you know the most important thing is that in the ports of entry, basically in the coasts of Mexico, we have they have established laboratories, specialized laboratories, to make sure that all this is carefully tracked, because the precursors are chemicals that are difficult. And we started with 4, and we are in 72, I think, now, tracing 72 precursors, because they change very rapidly, you know. And then, of course, the transportation of these precursors is very tricky, because they can be, you know, transported in very small quantities. But anyway, but what I want to say is, yes, the system is being, I mean, we have a system already, but now the digital system is the one that is being now put forward. And the aim is to have 2 points of entry only, the legal entry, only 2, one in the Pacific and one in the Atlantic. That's I hope I answered your question.
Kylie, with regard to the 5 Americans who are being wrongfully detained in Iran, first, it's a positive step that they were released from prison and sent to home detention. But this is just the beginning of a process that I hope and expect will lead to their return home to the United States. As you've heard me say many times, I have no higher priority than looking out for the security, safety, and well-being of Americans around the world, and in particular, doing everything that we possibly can to bring home those who are being wrongfully detained in a number of countries, including in Iran. In this case of the 5, their detention in prison in many cases predates this administration, so it's been going on for a long time. One has been incarcerated wrongfully in Iran for 8 years. So this is a positive step. But I don't want to get ahead of its conclusion, because there's more work to be done to actually bring them home. My belief is that this is the beginning of the end of their nightmare, and the nightmare that their families have experienced. I'm also not going to get into any of the details about what we're doing or engaged on, because I don't want to jeopardize the completion of this process and the return home of our fellow citizens. Let me be clear about a couple of things, though. In any event, in any respect, Iran will not be receiving any sanctions relief. And in any instance where we would engage in such efforts to bring Americans home from Iran, Iran's own funds would be used and transferred to restricted accounts, such that the monies can only be used for humanitarian purposes, which, as you know, is permitted under our sanctions. There's an exemption for humanitarian that's there from the start. We will continue to enforce all of our sanctions. We will continue to push back resolutely against Iran's destabilizing activities in the region and beyond, including now in supplying Russia with drones for its war of aggression against Ukraine. And none of these efforts take away from that. These are entirely separate tracks. We focused on getting our people home, but we continue to take strong action against Iran's other activities that we and so many other countries profoundly object to. The State Department has been in contact with the 5 Americans. We spoke to them today. I think they're, needless to say, very happy to be out of prison, but we want to make sure that we complete this process and bring them home to their families. I've spent a fair bit of time with the families over the last 2.5 years. I know what this has meant to them, the separation from their loved ones, the questions every single day about their well-being, and the unanswered questions about when they'll come home. Well, now we're on a track to do that, but we need to finish this process.
Any Americans still in Iranian prison?
I'm not aware of anyone beyond the 5 that we're talking about.
No permanent residents.
So, again, I'm not aware of any beyond the 5 American citizens.
Next question goes to Jim Kassan, La Jornada.
Thank you, both secretaries. I'm wondering about the buoys in the Rio Grande, and particularly the U.S. government has said they're illegal. The Mexican government has said some of them are on Mexico's side. Why hasn't the U.S. government just taken a step to have them removed from the river if they're on the U.S. side? And why hasn't the Mexican government taken a step to remove them if they're on the Mexican side, rather than let them sit there where they're obviously injuring lots of people?
From my perspective, simply put, we're a country and a government that proceeds by rule of law. And in this case, the Department of Justice has gone to court to sue, seeking 2 things. One, the removal of the buoys, to an injunction against any further construction of buoys. So we need to let this legal process play out. The Department of Justice can give you more detail on this, but that is the proper and appropriate way to proceed for a country that operates under the rule of law.
Claro, y en el caso de México, nosotros, por supuesto, tenemos tenemos acuerdos, el acuerdo de 1940, de 1970, y tenemos una instancia que se llama la Comisión Internacional de Límites y Aguas, que tiene 2 secciones, la mexicana y la de Estados Unidos, y por tanto estamos siguiendo ese procedimiento, ¿verdad? Obviamente que nuestra petición, nuestra demanda es que se retiren estas boyas. Nosotros ya hemos presentado 2 notas diplomáticas que han sido acogidas por el gobierno federal. Esto es una acción del gobierno estatal, pero obviamente se está incurriendo en un problema ya no de carácter solo estatal, sino realmente fronterizo. Yo creo espero que tengamos buenas noticias en este próximo mes, y ahí estaremos analizando la situación, pero este es uno de los temas que nosotros trajimos a esta reunión.
For the next question, Edward Ribas with FA.
Thank you very much. First of all, with the Secretary, could you confirm that FBI is providing assistance to the investigation of the Ecuadorian candidate assassination? And when you spoke with President Bazoum in Niger, what he told you, what are his feelings now? Y también para la secretaria, si nos podría dar algunos más detalles, por favor, sobre el centro migratorio que México plantea abrir, cuándo abriría, en qué ubicación exacta y a quién atendería, y también, finalmente, sobre el tema de Ecuador, si a ustedes les consta algún tipo de vinculación con el cártel de Sinaloa en el crimen. Gracias.
Thank you very much. With regard to the FBI in Ecuador, I really refer you to them. It's not for me to speak to that, so I'll let them speak to what they're doing or not doing. With regard to President Bazoum in Niger, I spoke to him, I think, most recently the day before yesterday. I've spoken to him about half a dozen times since these military leaders came in, imprisoned him, and disrupted the constitutional order in Niger. We have deep concern for him, for his family, for his security and well-being. We've also made clear to the military leaders that we will hold them responsible for his safety and well-being. We talked at some length about the way forward in Niger, and we're both focused on the same thing, which is the restoration of the constitutional order. Deputy Secretary of State Nuland, as you know, was just in Niger. She had an opportunity to speak directly to the military leaders who've undertaken this action and made clear to them the imperative of restoring constitutional order, as well as everything that's at risk if they don't. As significantly, ECOWAS, the organization that brings together West African countries, is playing a lead role in making clear the imperative of the return to constitutional order, and we very much support ECOWAS's leadership and work on this. Alicia.
Bueno, muchas gracias. Tus 2 preguntas. La primera es cuáles son los temas que vamos a abordar en esta facilidad que vamos a abrir en el sureste mexicano. Yo creo que hay que definir varias cosas. Primero, es para atender una población definida, que son 4 nacionalidades: Cuba, Haití, Nicaragua y Venezuela, personas que quedaron rezagadas después de la conclusión del título 42 en territorio mexicano. Número 2, es temporal para solucionar el tema de estas personas, y va a ser una facilidad operada en principio por Naciones Unidas, Organización Internacional de Migración, y ACNUR, que es la Agencia de Refugiados. Ellos, pero sobre todo OIM. Ellos van a hacer lo que llamamos un pre-screening, ¿verdad? Y una vez que se sepa cuáles son elegibles, entrará en funciones entonces una oficina consular, un servicio consular de Estados Unidos, para definir cuáles pueden ya venir a Estados Unidos con un permiso de trabajo. Los que no puedan venir, esos nosotros nos haremos cargo de 2 maneras. Una, de integrarlos, ¿verdad?, a nuestra economía en realidad, y por eso se quiere hacer en el sureste, porque allá hay proyectos y programas en donde hace falta mano de obra y creemos que podemos realmente insertarlos. Y en todo caso, en algunos casos veremos qué otras opciones se abren, digamos la vuelta a sus países es otra opción, con excepción de Haití. En relación a Ecuador, estamos muy preocupados y muy acongojados realmente afligidos por lo que está pasando en Ecuador. El presidente Andrés Manuel López Obrador se refirió a ello hoy y yo hablé con el ministro de Relaciones Exteriores de Ecuador para expresarle nuestra, pues realmente, porque a nosotros nos pasó lo mismo en México, ¿no? En 1984 mataron a uno de los candidatos, que era Donaldo Colosio. Entonces sabemos lo que se atraviesa por esas vías. En 1994, perdón. Y por cierto, creo que nosotros hemos ofrecido todo el apoyo que requiere el gobierno de Ecuador.
And the final question goes to Maria Molina with NTN 24.
Thank you. So, as we speak, these criminal groups are growing in the region, are working together in the region. In Ecuador, apparently, the Cartel de Sinaloa had connections with the criminal group that had threatened Mr. Villavicencio. Also, Colombians were detained, were captured after this murder. Like, what is your approach between the U.S. and Mexico to work as a region against these criminal groups? And also, Secretary Blinken, these groups are also being fueled, financed by cocaine. And suddenly cocaine doesn't seem to be part of the picture anymore. It's like fentanyl is very important, but these groups are also being financed by cocaine. We don't even have satellite images of coca cultivation in Colombia or Peru or Bolivia anymore. So how are you working together against these groups?
Shall I? Bueno, muchas gracias por tu pregunta. No hay evidencias de qué es lo que pasó en Ecuador, así es que es muy temprano para hacer cualquier tipo de afirmación. Sí sabemos que el candidato Villavicencio había hecho algunos pronunciamientos antes en su campaña, pero no hay ninguna prueba de que esto sea así. Por eso hemos ofrecido todo el apoyo, pero no hay evidencias, no hay pruebas, no hay nada. Vamos a ver. Y por supuesto que estamos colaborando, pues cómo no, si justamente lo que queremos justamente es tener un control de armas, ¿verdad? Porque armas y delincuencia pues van juntos y por eso estamos trabajando. Y quiero decirte que no solamente estamos trabajando en fentanilo. En el caso de México y también ese es el problema hoy, por el abuso, porque causa muertes, pero también estamos trabajando en todas las demás drogas, en heroína, en cocaína, en todo lo que significa el manejo ilícito de químicos y de drogas sintéticas, porque lo que pasa con el fentanilo es que es una droga que ya no es producida por vías naturales, naturales me refiero plantas, ¿no? Es una droga muy complicada porque ya es sintética, entonces eso abre otro tipo de universo. Estamos colaborando, creo que en todo, y justamente por eso nuestros temas de seguridad están tan vinculados, ¿no? Es decir, sí, el control de los suministros, de las cadenas que se producen por las drogas sintéticas y no sintéticas, y desde luego el tráfico de armas, que ese es lo que nos preocupa mucho a ambas partes, creo yo.
Thank you. We have an enduring focus on other drugs, notably cocaine, heroin. As the Minister said, that remains very much front and center in our focus and in the work that we're doing together with countries in the hemisphere, including notably Colombia, where we have a long record of working together effectively to deal with this. When I was in Colombia meeting with President Petro, we reconfirmed our focus, collaboration, which goes forward effectively to this day to deal with drugs like cocaine and heroin. And we have programs here at the State Department that continue day in, day out to reinforce the work that authorities are doing in countries, including Colombia. We have very strong collaboration between the United States and Mexico on trying to deal with the cartels themselves. And one of the things that we've seen is that some of these cartels are moving from plant-based drugs to synthetic drugs for a whole variety of reasons, not the least of which is that when you can do something in terms of producing a synthetic opioid in a room the size of this one and produce millions of pills, you can see how that can be an unfortunately very effective way of conducting your business. And given that what's smuggled is also pretty small in size, the incentives for some of these organizations moving into synthetic opioids are great. So we have to deal with that. The United States has been the canary in the coal mine on synthetic opioids in our hemisphere. It happened here first. But unfortunately, we are not last. And so we see a significant increase in the use and deaths from fentanyl in a number of other countries in our hemisphere. And we see that these cartels are trying to make markets, because our own market is now so saturated, in Europe, in Asia, and other places. But again, this does not take away from the traditional focus, if you want to call it that, on other plant-based drugs. We have to, and we are doing both. Alicia, of course, is exactly right about the importance of getting at every angle of this. One of those angles, and I mentioned this earlier, is on arms trafficking, illegal arms trafficking. And here, the United States is very conscious of the need to meet our responsibilities in working to curb that trafficking. We now have new laws in place that make trafficking across borders a federal crime. We have new authorities that we're using. And what we've seen just in the last less than a year is a significant increase in investigations, prosecutions, convictions, and seizures. Seizures of firearms heading north to south just in the first quarter of fiscal year 23 have gone up by 65%. That is evidence of our commitment and also evidence of some results. But it's a massive challenge and one that we're at every day. And I agree with you that always looking for ways to strengthen collaboration, including among multiple countries, makes sense. It is something that we do, and we're always looking at ways to strengthen that collaboration. Thank you.
One more on that issue of the arms trafficking.
Thank you all.
Can I just add one thing?
Please.
Muy rápido. Hay que enfocarnos en las causas también. Es decir, también es un problema de public health, de salud pública. Y también eso lo estamos abordando conjuntamente. Solo eso quería agregar y decir también que estamos muy dispuestos a colaborar en el tema de Haití. Así es de que ahí, en cuanto salga la resolución de Naciones Unidas, México se pronunciará. Gracias, secretario Blinken. Gracias a todos.
Thank you.
Gracias.